The hotel you see in the distance is called the Grand Hotel Taipei. It's a large building in the shape of a traditional Chinese building, but massive. We were thinking about staying there just for the uniqueness value, but it's a little bit out of the way compared to the Ximending area. If I were staying again in Taipei, I'd strongly consider the hotel since it's more on the north side and we haven't explored as much actually on that part. We arrived here at the Shilin Market, and it's one of the biggest and most famous markets in Taipei. I like it because it's a bit more spread out compared to the other markets, and so there's a little bit more space and room to move. The market itself covers probably the largest area I've seen of a night market, and it's more than just one long street. There's also a few streets like this that kind of branch out. This isn't the main part of the market yet, so you can see some of the dedicated eateries and restaurants on the side. There are also some food stalls here. As you can see, it seems like pretty much anywhere you can fit one, there's a food stall at the side of the road. The nice part about the area is you can choose to get food to walk around the market, or you could also sit down at a restaurant if you wanted that as well. Actually, I feel like if you were staying in a hotel near the Shilin Night Market, or any night market rather, it's pretty nice because you can just go out and pick what you'd want to eat in the afternoon. Unlike many markets, there's kind of a central point of the Shilin Night Market, and here we're kind of entering that building. You'll see here in a second there's a lot of stalls here with food advertised, but they're closed. And then there's also a game section of this building. This was here in my previous trip as far as the games, but what was interesting is there's actually a basement floor, and we'll see later in the video it's kind of been abandoned or changed. That's a big difference since my last trip, since before COVID that was a very popular and bustling part of the market. As we get into the actual part of the market, you can see there's both stalls and then there's actual proper stores as well. So that's the first difference you'll see from other markets here. You can see there's quite a lot of people at the night market, but it isn't as crowded as the other markets that we went to, just because there was more space in between the stalls. Besides having the market, it also had a lot of clothing and other accessories available. I think the Shilin Night Market area is kind of interesting because if you're going to the northeast, or actually it's northwest of Taipei, the only attractions there are the Taipei or Taiwan National Museum. It isn't as dense as far as the amount of attractions here. So most people I would think in this area are visiting the night market or perhaps the museum. So from this point on, this is just exploring a little bit of the night market and the surrounding shops. This will give you some idea of what it's like just to be walking through the area. This stall was pretty interesting since it was more of like a carnival style game. It seems like you could win some prizes if you successfully threw the ring on a bottle. A lot of the stalls in the food here were also food you could take and walk around. Unlike the other night markets, I didn't see as many restaurants or bars rather that you could take the food into. So maybe in Shilin Night Market, you might have to eat it just as you're walking around, or perhaps there are some restaurants or bars that allow that. We saw they also had one of these like fake 3D displays up above the store. Seen it in a few places in Japan and then the Philippines. It has its pretty unique, I guess, Taiwanese twist to what they're showing here. You can see this is another side street. This area has a really interesting mix of both the night market and then the clothing stores and just regular stores. It's not just a pure night market like the other ones we visited. They also had some American burger options here as well as a Korean chicken option. So interesting to see some different cuisines. I'm pretty sure they cater to the tourists who, visit the Shilin Night Market, and there are plenty of choices if you aren't looking for just Taiwanese food. We thought this was a pretty interesting concept for a restaurant or bar. Basically, there's tents inside the restaurant, and it's kind of like a glamping experience if you were to go in there. So we stopped by another convenience store. We were unable to find something we wanted to eat at this point, but we're thirsty, so just grabbed some beer and water. This area is the old Shilin Night Market area. You can see the stairs or the escalator leading to the basement. That's where I used to go for eating a lot of the night market food, and now it's been closed due to COVID. Seems like they have some plans to reconstruct or renovate it, so I'm curious to see what it looks like once they reopen. Here's the games area. As mentioned, this part is still open, and it's probably one of the bigger games areas I've seen in a night market in Taipei. Probably the biggest one of the major night markets, at least. After searching around the market and going through it a few times, we couldn't really decide on anything, so we kind of defaulted to this one teppanyaki place we saw at the entrance of the market. And I was really glad we did because it was one of the best meals we actually had in Taiwan. The location is pretty interesting because it's just right at the entrance near the road, and there's a ton of people walking by. It's a really bustling area. Kind of reminds me of some izakayas in Japan that were a bit open to the street, and then you can kind of see the foot traffic going through. So it was pretty cool because they had this one large grill that covered the entire surface of the tables, and then they were able to cook our food in front of us. You could see them cooking other people's food as well. I appreciated the free flow drinks on this place. Usually there wasn't free flow drinks in other places, but it was pretty useful here, especially as the food was a bit salty. I would say for me though, that's a positive. I usually like salty food, even though it may not be the healthiest, but yeah, it was to my liking as far as the food. And yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the meal. So after finishing at the teppanyaki place, we decided to explore a bit more on the night market area. We ended up stopping by this drinks vendor and getting a drink from him. If I recall, it was pretty good, a little bit sour. I'm not sure exactly what the fruit is, but it's refreshing, especially after the teppanyaki. And if I'm not mistaken, we stopped by another drink vendor and got some avocado milk. I've grew up having actually some avocado milk type drinks, so I was kind of craving that. We ended up staying way later than we had intended to on this final day. We were kind of planning to turn in early, but I'm glad we saw Shilin Night Market. At this point, we're heading back to the Ximending area in our hotel. This is the Taipei main station, so if you're ever going to other parts of Taiwan, this is likely where you're going to go to the bullet train or perhaps grab a bus. It's also where you can go and transfer to other lines in Taipei City as well. The structure we're passing by is one of Taipei's original city gates. It's called Beimen, and it was built in 1884 by the Qing dynasty, and it's still preserved today. So before leaving Taipei, we stopped by to get some gifts from the gift shop. One of the more famous things to buy and to give from Taipei is the pineapple tarts, and we went through a few shops to find a good deal on some of these. Some of the shops offer really high prices for tourists, so it's best to shop around. We're in Ximending here, and we found a pretty reasonable deal next to this On Cloud shoe store. We also stopped by this alcohol store to get some whiskey. Apparently, Taipei is famous for a specific brand of whiskey which is award-winning, and so we were here to get my girlfriend's uncle a gift since he was pretty fond of whiskey. If you made it this far, thanks for watching to the end of this Taipei series. There are around 5 or 6 videos in the series, so if you haven't seen the other ones, they're on my channel and they take you through various parts of Taipei. If you like travel, like and subscribe as I have plans for more travel videos in the future.